This is for the rule breakers, the rebels, those who aren't afraid to shake up the status quo. If you're living your life your way, or if you're not, but like listening to people who are, this podcast is for you. It's never too late to learn how to ruin your own reputation.
Welcome to How to Ruin Your Own Reputation, the show where I talk to people who find themselves in situations that they never expected to, or are just living lives either personally or professionally that some people just might not quite understand, and they're doing it unapologetically. Today, I get to talk to my friend Bobby Waldner, who is also known on TikTok as the Glitter Dad, which is how I met him. He was the first person that I saw on TikTok, and I just fell in love. His videos made me laugh out loud, literally. And then watching him and his daughter Audrey do videos was just amazing. And then when they were game, he included his husband James and their son Michael. So getting to know Bobby, I saw how unique and special their family was, but also how not so unique. And so today we're going to talk about parenting and adoption and how you don't have to be a mother to be damn good at mothering. So let's jump right into this. Hello, Bobby.
Hi, Marcy. Thank you so much for having me today.
Thank you for being here. I know that you're super busy between taking care of your kids and teaching yoga and writing your book. So I appreciate you taking the time to just chat.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So let's just start. Let's start with you just letting me know how you met your husband, James, and how you guys went from being husbands to husbands and dads.
Yeah, so James and I had met 10 years ago. We started dating and really just fell in love and followed the relationship escalator. We talked about on our first date about how we wanted to have a family and how we wanted to be dads someday. And so we really followed that timeline of dating, and then we moved in together, we fell in love, we got engaged, we got married. And about a year later, we started the process of adoption. That was, one of the goals of us was to become dads. We wanted to become dads right away. We'd been together for 4 years at that point, and we were just ready for that next step. So we considered a lot of different options. There's surrogacy, there's having our own biological children, there's infant adoption, and then there's foster care adoption. And we looked into each avenue, and me being a social worker at the time and working in multiple group homes for troubled youth, I just naturally felt the need to become a foster parent that was moving towards adoption, because I've seen these kids grow up in these group homes and not have any chances at a family. Most kids in foster care over the age of 5 are considered at risk because most families don't want to adopt older children, and especially sibling groups, a brother and sister. Keeping siblings together is really difficult in the foster care system. So that was one of my draws to foster care, was to keep siblings together, to keep families together. And it's been a really important part of our entire journey. So now we're 6 years in, and we're just one big old happy family at this point. We have our ups, downs, trials, tribulations, and it's just been an incredible journey.
Can I ask you, how long were they separated before they got to come back together with you guys?
Yeah, most of their childhood. So my daughter was 4 when she when she moved in with us. So her whole life had basically been in foster care. She was in 2 different homes. My son was in about 4 or 5 different homes before he came to us.
Wow.
And he had been in about 4 or 5 different schools at the time. So they were really just looking for a stable home for these kids. And my heart just absolutely jumped when they said they had a sibling pair for us to adopt. And I remember that day so vividly when I very first met them. We met them with their foster mom, and all we knew is that we knew their ages and their names and we knew nothing else. So I'd never seen these kids before. We met them at a restaurant, and my husband and we were sitting there, and I was more nervous that day than I was on my wedding day, meeting these children for the very first time. And every time the door opened, I would jump and look, and okay, that's not them. And then one time the door opened and I looked over and I saw these two amazing little kids walking in, and I just knew it was them. I said, that's them. And sure enough, it was them. And we met, and it was just like a really natural, fun meeting. We were all out to dinner, getting to know each other. We were playing in the parking lot, swinging the kids, back and forth with our arms, giving piggyback rides. So it was a really natural meeting the first time. And so after that first initial meeting, the foster agency talks to the kids, they talk to us and see if we want to move forward with more more meetings. And then they came over to have a sleepover for a weekend to see if they were comfortable in our home, comfortable with us, that type of thing. And we just had so much fun that weekend. It was just before Christmas. So Christmas was coming out. So we got to do all these really fun Christmas activities. And once the kids decided, and we decided that everything was solid and we wanted to be their foster family, they moved in. So it was about a week after we first met them that they actually moved in. Yes. It all goes very fast. So there's a lot of hurry up and wait in the foster care system. So the process itself takes a really long time with background checks, FBI checks, all paperwork and all of that. And then once it happens, once you're licensed as a foster care parent, they call you pretty much right away and you become a parent. And so that's how quickly it happened for us.
Now, it's got to be like, I'll tell you, I remember bringing home my first baby, and I remember bringing him home, and he was in his little car seat thing, and I put him on the dining room table, and I went, okay, now what do I do? Like, I was the youngest of three. I was like, what do you do? Like, what do you do? But
and my kids have full-on personalities.
Well, that's it. Yeah, my kid didn't know that I didn't know what I was doing, but you got these two full-grown people who are going, all right, like, you're that. Like, how do you just jump into that?
Yeah, you just jump into it, and that's exactly how it goes. There's no like I said, they came with full-on personalities. They already had life experience. I didn't have to teach them how to talk, how to walk. I had to teach them how to love and be a part of a family. And that was my number one goal, was to make them, help them feel like they were part of our family.
Now, did you and James, because also this wasn't a slow process of kind of figuring out what kind of parents you're going to be and what roles you're going to take. Did you right away know, okay, this is how I want to do it and this is how I want to do it? Were you in sync? How did that work?
Yeah, well, in the foster care system, we actually had to take parenting classes. So we actually went to some groups before. You have to take, I think it's about a month or 2 months, I think, of classes. So we met there and really, really navigated our parenting style and went into it like all ready for everything. And then the kids moved in and that just went completely out the window. Like, you're never prepared of like who your child is going to be, especially when they come with full-on personalities. They looked at what we had and were like, yeah, right. They kind of ran the show the first month that we were there.
Wow. Well, yeah, it's like having a birth plan. I know when I was pregnant, and then I had an emergency C-section. Like, you can plan with kids as much as you want, but it doesn't matter what age they are. They're in control. They're in control. But I know that we've spoken about the fact that, I don't know if it was right away, but you decided that you're going to be a stay-at-home dad.
Yes, we decided before we became parents that I would be a stay-at-home dad for many reasons. Because we were adopting out of foster care, I wanted to be at home to help them acclimate into our home. My daughter wasn't in school yet, so she was there every day, and we went through this whole process of trying to transition into things. My son at the time was going to a school an hour away from where we lived. So I had to get up every morning and drive him an hour to his school, an hour back home, and then an hour to pick him back up and an hour back home. So that was a time that my daughter and I actually really bonded, because she was in the car seat and we would sing her songs and we'd have a blast just, spending 4 hours every day in a car together. But that was how we bonded, and got to know each other. It was spending that time in the car.
Now, did you find that there was a difference, let's say, in school, or how people reacted to you because you were two dads?
Fortunately, we live in a very blue state. We live in a very welcoming community. And actually, before I had this podcast, I checked in with my kids to see if there were if they had any problems with other kids or anything at school by having two dads, because it's been so far removed out of my mind. We've never had an issue. We've had many other issues with actual bullies, actual, kids in school, but never about us being dads, which is really fortunate. And we feel very lucky that we're in a school system that is very supportive, area of the country that we're very supported. So, when I asked my kids if they've had any, weird things happen because they've had two dads, they just looked at me like, why would anybody do that? So,
Wow.
yeah, the climate in the school is, I think for them, we're just parents. They don't care if we're gay, straight, whatever. We're just parents to them. We're just the people that tell them what to do all the time.
Right. That's so true. And I think that for anyone, you get to an age, I don't know if you guys are there, but that it doesn't matter what kind of parents you are, it doesn't matter, you're embarrassing. Like, I remember there was a time when I would do my body image workshops at my kids' school when they were in elementary school, and they were like, "Oh, let me tell it." Like, they were so excited when I was going to go speak to their friends, and then they got to the point where they were like, "Oh my God, don't come to my school! Like, please don't come to my school," because it was so embarrassing. I'm still a me, but they're just, they're kids. So yeah, I think I would think that there were other people, adults, who would maybe project and be like, "Oh, it's going to be challenging for those kids," but really, it's not your kids or other kids that have an issue.
We got that so much in the beginning that the parent or the adults that were not really friends of ours, but like, TikTok comments and social media, that type of thing, that whole, presumption or assuming that this is what's going to happen. Well, why would you do that to your kids? They're going to get bullied. I got that a lot. And turns out they never did get bullied for having two dads. Like, it was never an issue. It was a non-issue.
That's the whole thing is, don't worry about my kids being bullied. Just teach your kids not to bully.
Teach your kids not to bully. Yeah.
It's like, I got my kids under control. If you're so concerned about my kids being bullied, then make sure you're not the kids. Your kids aren't the ones that are doing the bullying.
Yes. Right? I mean, now, like I said, we're 6 years into it. My son is a full-blown teenager. So everything I do is embarrassing. Well,
exactly. And it lasts a while. I think my kids are in their 20s, and I think I'm still embarrassed.
Yes. It gets funner and easier because now I want to be cringy. So I try to do things that embarrass him in front of his friends. Yes.
Now, I know we talked though also about how there are little things that I know, again, schools just being prepared for different sounds, like how to handle.
There are some microaggressions that we do experience, like we were talking about, things that, aren't necessarily directed at us and trying to be not inclusive for us. But sometimes I'll get papers at home that say, sign here, mom, sign here, dad. And so I just send it back with I'll cross out mom and put, parent, and then I'll put a little sticky note on there to please update your forms. I expect to see this reflected on the next form I receive.
And like Mother's Day and how they handle Mother's Day.
Yeah, so my kids actually celebrate me for Mother's Day because we look at mothering as a verb and not a noun. It can be both, but I take it as the verb, the act of mothering, being caring, being nurturing. That's my role for my kids. I stay home with them to be their nurturer, to be their comfort. And so my kids celebrate me for Mother's Day. For number one, I deserve my own day. Because my husband and I have very different roles. And Mother's Day usually it falls in May, which is during school. So why should my kids be left out from all of the Mother's Day activities? So it's just become a running joke now. They'll go to the store and get a Mother's Day card and cross out mom and put dad on it. Or they'll say Happy Mother's Day, Dad, because I am that figure for them. I don't need to be a woman to be caring. I just need to be their parent.
Absolutely. And it's funny because it's just a sign of the times. I remember being 10 years old back in the 80s, and my parents were divorced, and my school wasn't prepared for that. So I had to deal with Father's Day, and my father wasn't around, and it was like all the kids are making the cards for Father's Day, and I remember going to the bathroom and crying. I didn't know what to do, and then I came out and just said, "No, my mom is my parents. She's both my parents." So I just did something for her. But now you think there's so many. It's kind of an anomaly if the parents are together. So I guess it's a sign of the times. Let me ask you this. What's the number one bizarre question that you get from people who don't quite get the whole same-sex situation?
The one that drives me the most insane, and it's the one I get asked all the time. I mean, everybody asks it, and it's such a weird question for me, but everyone worries about or wonders about what I'm going to do when my daughter starts her period. And it is mind-blowing to me that that's the first place that a lot of people go. It is one of the
frightening. It's a little bit creepy.
It is very creepy, but they kind of look at it as, you're a man. How are you going to be able to talk to your daughter about this? And, and then sometimes women will say, I would never, ever be able to talk to my dad about those things. And I feel bad for for them for not having the relationship with their dad that they can have those conversations with. I've developed a relationship with my daughter that we can talk about anything. And, and going into we're she's 10, so we're there. We're at the jumping off place of puberty. And let me tell you, I've talked to her. I've read books. I jump into everything that I can possibly find that will help her figure that out. We sat on the couch the other day and just watched YouTube videos about the menstrual cycle and how that happens. She has period panties in her backpack. She's prepared if something happens at school, that she knows to go to the nurse. She knows to call me. She knows exactly what to do. So we have developed that relationship that we can have those conversations. And one really funny thing that I realized that she could talk to me about anything is that she is going through puberty right now. And she comes downstairs one day and she lifts up her shirt and she's like, "Dad, are these getting bigger or what?" And I just had to take a step back and be like, wait a minute, why are we worried about your breasts getting bigger? And so it was just that thing, she had a friend at school that started wearing a bra, so she wanted to wear a bra too. So next thing I knew, I'm down at Target getting bras for my daughter. And then I had this moment at Target by going to buy a bra, and I was like, I'm going to take a selfie and post it on Instagram because this is hilarious. And I'm like, this is hilarious for me, but it might not be hilarious for the people that are around me.
Right.
Sometimes I have to reel it back and see where I'm at too.
It really is such a comment on the expectations of genders, because it's you want to have a great relationship with your child or with your parents, and feel like it shouldn't be where I can only talk to dad about this, or I only can talk to mom about, and if that is the way it is, that's fine. But to assume that someone isn't capable of handling certain things
it's just kind of like saying a male gynecologist isn't capable of doing his job. Now, I also have to take a step back and recognize that I am not a woman. I will never know what that actually feels like. But what I also need people to know is that Audrey has tons of women in her life that she can turn to talk to about these things. She's got a gaggle of aunties just waiting for the phone call for that day that happens, that they're all coming over and we're all going to comfort her, and talk to her about it. So you gay men, we do know women.
I'm sure you know women more than a lot of straight men do.
And so it's a village. We have a village. We have a village of people that can help us where we can't. We're not 100%. We're not perfect, but we have a village of people that can step in for those things that we can't.
Which is amazing. Now I know something you shared with me another time that was really funny. So it's funny that people think, "Oh, how are you going to relate to your daughter?" But that's been fine. But I remember you sharing that you were a little a little kind of concerned and put off when your son came to you with something that he wanted to share.
Yes. So I am a very fabulously feminine gay man. I am like theater and Broadway and all the things, musicals. I love all of those things. My son is completely opposite of that. He is a total bro. And so I'm more confused on how to develop a relationship with him than I am my daughter, right? Like my daughter and I can just like go back and forth and sing in the car and have a blast. I'm having more trouble relating to my son in that regard because he's a total bro. You know, he's a very popular kid in school. He likes sports, just completely opposite of what I was as a teenager. So I'm like completely like blindsided with things that come up as him being a teenager. And he came up to me and my husband one day and said, you know, dad, I want to be a football player. And I just kind of like, okay, I will support that. And I have no idea what I'm going to do.
I love you no matter what.
Yeah, I watched the halftime show for the Super Bowl, and that's my whole experience with football, right? Well, football didn't end up working out for him, but he did become a soccer player. And so now I'm actually a soccer dad, still not knowing anything about soccer. But I'm getting there, and I show up every single soccer game with my umbrella and sometimes my winter jacket and scarf because it's freezing cold. That's another thing that you don't really realize. You're like, yeah, sports, and then you're like, it's pouring down.
I know. I've been there. I know.
Yep. So I'm diving into it, you know, and it's really important for me to dive into his world and you know, and see him for who he is and supporting him for who he is. You know, a lot of people misjudge on how he's going to be raised. And some people think that we're going to raise him to be gay. And it's just like not a thing that even is possible, right? You can't just force somebody to do something. What I hope is that he's comfortable being himself, no matter who or what he identifies as. That's my goal, is for him to, and being the cool soccer athletic kid is awesome. And it's just something that I'm trying to dive more into it. And it kind of takes me back to a conversation that I had with my dad, who is, you know, a butch football hockey dude. And I went to him when I was my son's age and said, Dad, I want to be a figure skater. And so his reaction was basically like my reaction, like, oh, I don't know what to do with this, but I'll try to support it as much as I can.
Okay. And how did that work out?
And that was, you know, that was not as supportive as I was, right? So this was also, you know, back in the 80s, it was a very small conservative town. It was very unheard of for a boy to even be a figure skater. And I ended up actually being the only boy figure skater in my entire region.
Wow.
Yeah. So, you know, it came at a price. My dad was supportive, but he wanted me to be the best, and I had to be number one. And if I wasn't number one, then I was a failure. And I knew exactly how much he had spent on that test or that competition. And I knew I needed to do things differently with my son. So when my son came to me with something that was maybe not up my alley or I didn't necessarily know much about, I just want him to be out there and have fun, right? And give him a different experience than I did. And so, you know, I do see those dads that were my dad, right? So I'm at these soccer games and I see these other dads screaming at their kids, get out there, do better and have fun. And I'm just over there like, I hope everybody's having a good time.
Hilarious. And you know what though? My kids play sports quite high level too. And you do see those parents. And what I found was oftentimes the parents who were the most aggressive, those kids didn't stay because it wasn't fun for them.
Yeah, I know for me, I ended up losing interest in figure skating when I started getting older, and it just became too much, you know. So I just want my kids to experience things when they're young to have fun with it, you know, and don't take life so seriously.
There's something else I want to ask you, because I know when it comes to the whole adoption process, something else you do that's pretty amazing is that you've wanted to keep your kids in contact with their biological family.
Yes, yes. Like I said, keeping that relationship alive is really important to us. The other piece of our story is our kids have four other siblings, so together there's six siblings. Their other siblings are all adults now, all out on their own doing their things. We have a relationship with their older sister. She's come over for Thanksgiving, Christmas, events and stuff like that. She has also moved away at this point. So they keep in contact over messaging and stuff like that. Just recently, we got a hold of their older brother, and found out that he lived in California. So we were going to take a family trip down to Disneyland for the first time as a family this year. We were supposed to go 2 years ago, but then COVID happened. So that got all pushed off until this year. And then when we found out that their brother lived in California, he's 23, we asked him if he could join us for that weekend. And we got him a hotel room, got him his ticket to Disneyland so he could come and experience this family vacation with us. And it turns out the day that he came down there was his birthday, and we had no idea that it was his birthday. So he got to meet Audrey. He had met her when she was a baby, and had not seen her since then. When we talked to him on the phone, he asked how old she was, and he almost started crying because he realized she was 10 and he didn't get to know her. So Michael and him had lived in a foster care home together for a few years. So they had a relationship already. And so when they met for the first time in 6 years, they hugged, and the smile on my son's face was enough to make me cry. That joy on his face when he saw his brother was just a really amazing, spectacular moment. And then to add the cherry on the top, that was their brother's birthday weekend. And so we all got to experience this as a family together. And now we have the contact and relationship with the older brother that I hope him and his girlfriend are coming up for Thanksgiving this year. So it's really, really important for us to keep those relationships with those siblings alive, right? And my daughter and her older brother really connected on ADHD. They're both highly impacted on ADHD. So they really got to talk about what all that is, and to see them bond and get to know each other was really quite amazing. And there was this moment that we were all together. It was after Disneyland, after all the things had said and done. We were at the hotel, we were in the pool. And the kids were in the pool. My husband and I were kind of sitting at the chairs, and the older brother had my son on his shoulders, and then my daughter was on my son's shoulder. So the three of them on their shoulders was really super adorable. And I just looked at my husband and I said, so do we apply for Dads of the Year, or do we just wait for a phone call? Because that was a good moment. That was such a really powerful moment.
Job, I'm telling you, I have goosebumps. I keep getting as somebody who's very close to the milder brother who I lost quite young. Oh my God, I keep getting, and what I keep thinking when you're saying this, what came to my mind was, so you didn't just create this family of the four of you, because you brought them back together, and because you've got such a solid home and this family, you were able to then also bridge the original kind of family. So it's really expanded. It's more than just Audrey or Michael or the four. It's all of you, and that's pretty amazing. I didn't even think of that at first. How it's affecting so many people in this family by making more families. It's made this family tighter and brought this family together.
Yes. And even their siblings, even though their siblings are adults, they are family now. They are part of our family. And we reminded the brother and sister of that when we do meet them. We do have two other siblings that we have not met. And we're still working on that. And it's a process, and hopefully we'll get there.
For sure. And it's never too late. I mean, I think that, for adults, there is a bond with siblings. And even if they're growing up separately, they've had that, there is that connection. Like you said, you saw it, and your daughter just went right to him and make it. So there's something there. And I think it's pretty powerful. And, and to not even, and you couldn't have foreseen any of this.
Yeah.
So now you're working on writing your story and sharing your story. And what's the catalyst for that? What is the message that you want to give with that? What is pushing you? Because I know what it's like to write a book about your life. So it's not easy. So what is it that's making you want to do that?
Because I want people to take away those assumptions that they have. Like, I can't have that relationship with my daughter to talk to her about the menstrual cycle. I can't have the relationship with my son without turning him gay. I want people to know that our families are valid, our families are important, and if it wasn't for us, who knows where they would have ended up. I choke up every time I think about it. What would have happened if they hadn't come to us, and where would they be? Because I just look at these two kids who were so lost and so afraid of the world. And then when they came to us, it's like you could see the moment that they breathed and took a breath. And I will say it was the moment my son called me dad for the first time. And I actually I was on the phone with my sister-in-law. He had referred to us as Bobby and James for the first couple months that he had lived with us. My daughter was 4, so she was all about having 2 dads. She was all like, dad, daddy, but it took him a while. He was very hesitant. He was 9. Everyone in his life had left him at that moment, at that time. So he was really hesitant about opening himself up, showing love, being loved. And I was and it was just one day I was on the phone with my sister-in-law, and he had yelled at me from the other room, and he said, "Dad, can I go to my friend's house?" And I stopped and I was like, yes, go ahead. And my sister-in-law started screaming on the other end of the line. And she was like, did he just call you dad? Did he just call you dad? And I'm like, oh my God, he just called me dad. So it was just, that moment, like I want people to not be afraid of adopting older kids out of foster care, that these kids just need love, and they need stability, and they need a home. I want people to know that all of their assumptions about what goes on, we're just your average everyday family that has 2 dads. And even in our neighborhood, that's how we're referred. We're just like the house down the street with the 2 dads. It's nothing scary or crazy, and my story, I think, resonated with a lot of people on TikTok. And I think that's why I got a following as much as I did. So quickly. I mean, I went up to about 230,000 followers within a few months, and people were just resonating with what I was saying. And I feel like putting the pen to the paper, so to speak, typing it out and really sharing more in depth what this story that I'm telling you, more detailed about what our family is and who they are. And I think people want to hear that.
Like I said, you were one of the first people that I saw on TikTok when I went on. It was during the difficult time in the world, and I just needed kind of a break from that. And all you saw was fun and love and just this comfort that you all had. And there's something that's really appealing and that does really resonate with people, either because we share it or because we want it. But there was something that we really needed to see. And I love that you're writing your story, and that I think what you said there is to not be afraid. I think that's what's so important. I think a lot of people know what they want, but they let fear of things that will probably never happen, fear of issues that will probably never come up, keep them from missing out on the best, right? Because what if that doesn't, and what if you're missing
what if it works out? What if it's great?
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think that's fantastic. Is there anything else you want to share before?
Yeah, I mean, I could sit here and talk for hours about things that I could share. And I appreciate you reaching out. You were a person that inspired me to write my book. I actually read your book and fell in love with it and was like, I need to write my own story now, because Marcy's book was awesome and I'm feeling that. So I'm going to write my own story. And then I got like everything ready. I downloaded some writing software. I got my spare room into my writing room. I have a bulletin board to patch up all my stuff and to get down and write. And I started writing last year. I started writing writing. And I realized that I had a lot of healing for myself to do. So a large part of my book is also going to be part of how I healed the childhood traumas that I had experienced, letting go of all of those things that had happened to me, and my dad making me feel like a failure in figure skating, all of the things that I experienced as a young gay man in a small conservative town. And even coming out to my mom and talking about that, a large part of my parenting journey is parenting without my mom. So when I first adopted my kids, my mom passed away a month after I became a dad. So it was one of the most tragic things that had ever happened in my life. And so here I was experiencing this amazing dream come true of being a dad. And here I have my house with the white picket fence and my 2 kids, and everything was amazing. And my mom did get to talk to my kids on the phone. She did die knowing that she was a grandma. That was really important and special to me. And when she died, my whole world fell apart. And I went into parenting without a parent, without my mom, without, the one person that I talked to every single day, especially leading up to the adoption. She would call me every day and she's like, did you get the call yet? Did they call yet? Did they call yet? When am I going to be a grandma? And so she was really excited to be their grandma, and they were coming out. We adopted them and they moved in December. And we got to celebrate this amazing Christmas with them. And their first Christmas was one for the books. I mean, everyone in our lives knew that we were becoming dads. So everyone in our lives was sending gifts. We couldn't even walk in our living room. There were so many boxes of stuff. The most excited person was my mom. And in holiday, it was too much to plan for the holidays. So they were coming out in February, and my mom died January 3rd. And like I said, my whole world fell apart that day. And I thought I would be a parent that I could call my mom when my kids were just driving me absolutely insane, to be like, Mom, what do I do? Or was I like that? And I don't have that anymore. And so I also had to show these kids this love while I was grieving the loss of this profound love. And so I navigated that by crying in the corner when they weren't around. And when I got alone time was when I got to grieve my mom, because I still needed to be strong for them. I still needed to show them the love. So after, shower, bathroom time, I get myself back together and come back and be an awesome dad. It was the most heartbreaking thing that I've ever had to do. And a lot of people will tell me, you saved your kids from the system, from the foster care system. But the truth is, they saved me, because if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't have gotten out of bed. There would have been so many things that could have happened and didn't, because they were there. I got up every single day because they were there. They needed me. They needed love. And so I needed them as much as they needed me.
Been an amazing, we've talked about this too, the fact that that's something else that we share, that I was incredibly close with my mom, who's a single parent. We spoke 3 times a day. She would call me with her cravings, her pregnancy cravings, telling me what she was craving. And then unexpectedly, she died 3 months before my first was born. And it was the same thing. I never expected to be a mom without my mom. I didn't know what to do. I needed to, it's like what I said when I brought my first son home and I put him on the table, and I was like, now what? I had nobody to call. I mean, it's so awful. But then same thing with you. I couldn't let myself drown with that sadness and that grief. I needed to feel it, which eventually I kind of let myself, but I couldn't, but there I had this person that needed me. And now, both my kids know all about my mom and my brother. I mean, it's not enough. I know, when people say, oh, they're with you in spirit, I'm like, it's not enough. But yeah, it's, I always say, similar to what you say, I always say, I gave birth to my kids. Like, I gave them life, but they saved mine. Mm-hmm. And that's something else that I think, kind of going back to the base of the whole thing is we're people. And we're parents.
Yeah.
And I think if you strip everything else away, there's always going to be this connection. There's different kinds of parents and different kinds of families, but we all get that feeling of love and protection and belonging. And I think that is something that is absolutely universal, which is why I think when you write your book and you come back on here and talk about it again, that so many people are going to relate to so many different parts. Because what I say all the time with this podcast is that the details of our personal stories are unique to us, but there is always a common thread, usually several themes that run through our lives that other people can relate to. Doesn't matter where you are, what you look like, what kind of life you've led. There's always something that it sounds cliche, but we're way more similar than we are different if we allow ourselves to learn from other people. So I appreciate you sharing all of that with
and I think that's really important piece to it is learning from other people and taking away those stigmas and those assumptions that you might have about us or our family. I mean, at the end of the day, we're just this wholesome little family that, argues sometimes and drives each other nuts sometimes. We're not perfect. We're not like, the picture perfect family at all. I just yelled at my son the other day for for acting up in school. He's 15. Oh my gosh, 15 is a whole like that brain development is just not there. And there are so many times where I'm just like, dude, I'm trying to be a cool dad here, but you're making it really, really hard.
Yeah. Because they're smarter than you. I mean, at that age, that's. But I have to say, I have to correct you with one thing when you say that you're just like everybody else. No, because your TikToks are hilarious, and I'm sorry, but that makes you a little bit extra.
All right. I will admit to that. I am a little bit extra, but we go.
And that's good. So before you go, I'm going to ask you one more thing. Yes. This is a fun thing that I ask all my guests. If they were making a movie of your life, who would play you?
Oh, that's a really great question. I get compared to Zachary Quinto a lot, which I think would be really great.
Right. Yes, I could totally see that.
That would be all right. But I have more of a personality, Sean Hayes from Jack from Will and Grace.
You just need to kind of morph them to, I can see that too. All right, putting that out in the universe.
Yes.
Okay. So thank you again for chatting with me, Bobby, and come back when you got your book ready to go or anything else you want to talk about. But I loved chatting with you as always.
Absolutely. And, it's kind of my work in progress. When my kids are in school is when I work on the book. So I'm hoping to have some meat by the end of this school year.
All right. I'm here for you when you do.
Awesome. Sounds great, Marcy.
Okay. Take care, Bobby.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Don't forget to subscribe to How to Ruin Your Own Reputation. Available now everywhere you get your podcasts.